Welcome to Bob's Coffee Chat. Today we have a very important and powerful presentation about human trafficking. And without going into a lot of detail, we have two facilitators that are going to run today's meeting. Both are my friends, Tom Santamorena and Joann Babiak. Tom is a commercial insurance broker, but has lots of experience in law enforcement. And my friend Joann Babiak, we've been friends for years. She's a family law attorney and very well versed with her and her clients in this particular subject. So without me going on and on, Joann and Tom, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob, for allowing us to share space in this time and on this topic. It's a very important topic, and we appreciate your hosting Coffee Chat. I have a few words that I wanted to share with you all by way of introduction. The Office of the Attorney General of the state of California has put out a message about human trafficking, and I thought it was important enough to share with you. This office says human trafficking is among the world's fastest growing criminal enterprises and is estimated to be a $150 billion a year global industry. That's globally. It is a form of modern day slavery that profits from the exploitation of our most vulnerable populations. Human trafficking does not require movement across borders. When you get down to it, the activity involves controlling a person or a group of people by force or fraud or coercion to exploit the victims for labor, for sexual activity, or for both. And this can occur entirely within a single country, a single county, or across borders. Human trafficking strips the victims of their freedom, and it violates our nation's promise to everyone that we are a country that guarantees basic human rights. It goes without saying that trafficking is a crime. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. I do want to mention that California consistently has the highest number of human trafficking incidents reported in the United States, and that tidbit is from our Alameda County District Attorney's Office.
Right now. Thank you, Bob, for having us today. Joann and I are both board members of the Community Violence Solutions nonprofit in Marin and Contra Costa counties, and that's why we've kind of coordinated this effort to share this with everyone and just really open your eyes to what's going on around you. And again, I don't think there's any area in this world that's exempt from what's going on here. This is a big business, $150 billion a year business. A lot of people are making money. A lot of people's lives are being ruined. As Bob mentioned, I was in law enforcement. Formerly, my first career out of college was as an undercover drug agent. I was a narc. And I walked into situations that you just would not believe the things that you would see. Again, our target was to go after the drug dealers, but the collateral damage that are surrounding these people are terrible. I mean, people willing to give up their children for drugs, women just offering sex acts just to have a little bit of drugs. These people are just in terrible situations. And when I was doing my job as a narcotics agent, we didn't really help these people. We were focused on, arresting the bad guys, the drug dealers, and confiscating all their money and drugs, and the collateral damage, these other people who were sucked into this life, we really didn't do much about. We never reported them to child services or family things. We, just lost sight of that. And it always bothered me, but that was how the system was. And it was later on in life that Joann and the nonprofit I mentioned asked me to get involved. And I really had a passion to get involved with them because of this. And CVS, the Community Violence Solutions, they're doing a wonderful job in educating and helping people. I mean, they're involved in rape and sexual assault crisis centers, counseling. They're involved in child abuse, domestic violence, and then human trafficking, which is happening right here in our backyards in San Francisco, Marin, Contra Costa. And I think people just take it way too lightly. I've known many businessmen who really don't give much thought to this. They think it's a big joke going to a massage parlor and have happy endings, and they're not really thinking about the people that it's affecting. You know, they look at it, well, these people are just willing participants. Or when I was a narcotics agent, we gave these people the term, they're just crack whores. And it's like, they're meaningless. Their value, their life has no value. And it's terrible looking at it this way. And it's no surprise we've been hearing stories about this with, you know, wealthy, well-known people, Jeffrey Epstein, the Prince Andrew. There may be some connection with the Bill Gates. I mean, it is so prevalent. There is so much money going on that I think a lot of this is being covered up. And I think we really need to open our eyes and be aware and look for these victims and aid them, help them. And we're hoping that this presentation that we do today will do part of that. It will make you sensitive to what's going on. Stop looking at these people as, you know, crack addicts or what. They're people, they're victims. They may be in this situation voluntarily now, but they weren't at the beginning. They were drawn into it. They were coerced. They were drugged, and then they got into this system, and now their self-esteem is just as low as possible. They don't know anything else. They're ashamed of who they are. And these are people's children, daughters, sons. I mean, it's shameful that we just let them continue to live in that situation. We need to get involved. We need to take action. We have to stop turning a blind eye. We need to know what's going on here. And I implore all of you, get involved. We're going to talk about a couple of nonprofits today. Get involved, go to some of the training, make some donations, volunteer. Look for the victims out there. They're all over the place. They may not feel like victims right now because they've got into this lifestyle, but they truly are. They didn't get into this freely when it first started. They were, I mean, some people are actually captured and chained and drugged. It is really happening. You might see that in TV movies, but it happens in real life. So we're going to have our panel. We're going to talk about these things. I want to find out how big the problem is, how people got involved in it, how we're helping them, how we rescue them. I think there's a lot of items that we're going to touch on. So before we get started, our attorneys have told us that we need to read a disclaimer. So let me add this disclaimer before we jump into this. And I'm going to read this verbatim so I don't get in trouble with the attorneys. We need to mention that the views and opinions presented by each of our panelists are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of other people or CVS or other institutions or organizations with whom the panelist is associated unless expressly identified as such. So there's the fine print. Now let's jump in. And I think I'll turn it back over to Joann to open the questions for Xochitil.
Thank you. And Tom, thanks for a great intro. It's all from the heart, and that's what matters here. We're all really invested in making good in the world. Xochitil, I have questions for you. Can you unmute your phone, please? Unmute yourself. Bob, can you unmute her? There we go. Xochitil, are you there?
I thought we had her there.
I thought we did, but it's not working. Xochitil, can you hear?
We had a little bit of a, we should be able to hear her now. Xochitil? We do have Xochitil unmuted.
Well, I guess
I see her, but I don't hear her. Do we all sign here?
Right. I don't know if you can call in to my line, Xochi, and we can just put you right up against the screen and you can talk. You can try.
Or did you want to do
We can
Lucia
move to
first?
Lucia. We can talk with Lucia for a while. Here's the phone for Xochi. Here she's calling. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear her?
Yes.
Very clearly.
Okay, Xochi, we can hear you. This is a kind of
Thank
an
God.
interesting thing. Okay, I want to say welcome to you, and I'd like you to take a moment to introduce yourself to those who are here.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with each of you this morning. I should say, and I should clarify, I am not the founder of Human Trafficking News and Information. That is the administrator who is a survivor of human trafficking herself, Ms. Cindy Allen. I have only been in this Facebook advocacy group since April of 2020. And at that point in time, we had about 300 members. And now, because of the stories that I posted, we have over 2,900 something or other members to date. Yes.
So that's a tremendous amount of growth. And
It is.
it's interesting that you would introduce the concept of social media as a platform to get the word out. And I know, Tom, you have a question for Xochi too.
I sure do. Victims of human trafficking can be subject to force, fraud, coercion for the purpose of sexual exploitation or forced labor. They may include children under 18 years of age. So how do you deal with the issue of underage survivors when reporting details about the story? They are protected privacy-wise. So how do you handle that?
Anonymity and confidentiality is of utmost concern. Thank you for drawing light to this issue. Again, the administrator, the direct administrator, Ms. Cindy Allen, has an amazing network of social services, shelter homes, connections that you can't possibly conceive of. And we're continuously linking people to such services. And with that in mind, there are quite a few stories which are fabricated, unfortunately. And so when we've contacted different agents of law enforcement, that comes to light. And so there are issues in which we have to navigate with the utmost concern and confidentiality. Mm-hmm.
So can you share some information about how you present the news on HTNI, your organization, on their webpage, which, by the way, is on Facebook, HTNI?
Yes.
So tell us about how you share this information.
It's a process. There are very many media outlets which are not exactly credible, shall we say. So I try to draw stories which have occurred within the year of 2021 from such media outlets as CNN, Human Trafficking Haters, World News, US World News. But I make sure that I double check on how credible the story is. For instance, I try to upload 4 to 10 postings a day. And there can be like one story, for instance, there was a recent story of a sheriff. I can't recall exactly what state it was. I think it was Connecticut, Texas, Arkansas. I can't remember exactly, but I cross-reference that particular story with all different media outlets and see how credible the story is with dates and times, names, and I double check the facts. And after about more than 4 or 5 stories, if they coincide, I just post it and we'll see what happens. But yet another example, there's so many different avenues to look at. I think the politician's name is Matthew Gates or something Gates. And I may not be pronouncing the name correctly. It's Gatez or something to that effect. I can't quite make sure that story is credible. So that story is on hold to post. But there's a lot of stories coming out from Africa with child trafficking. There's a lot of stories in Eastern and Western Europe, Latin America with the Juarez cartels. There's a lot of stories with connections of gangs in the US, foster care systems. Oh my goodness, that's a huge avenue to build upon. Yeah.
Good,
So-
thanks. Tom, back to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, Xochi, so kind of how do you decide what content that you share on your Facebook page? There's so much out there. Why do you choose what you do, and what's the call to action when you do post the items you do post?
Well, as I mentioned, after I make sure fact checks everything's in line or as best as can be, we have a lot of members who are drawn to stories of child trafficking. So that's what I try really and primarily to focus upon. The issue of the foster care system and the connections between human trafficking, child and sexual exploitation, immigrant and migrant labor trafficking, that's another concern. I'm trying to feed as much as I can, but unfortunately it's all, we only have one day to do it. So it's a lot of stories. And when that happens, what I tend to do is review, go back to anywhere between 1 year to 7 years and 10 years, and try to show the public how human trafficking has grown. It could be under a different name, modern day slavery, could be another name like child trafficking, foster care system. What's the one that keeps on coming up? There's so many faces and names that this has, but it is human trafficking, just with different names, different disguises as well.
Now, we know you've made a huge accomplishment over the past few years, getting the word out about your network, and readership has really grown significantly. But with that growth, you mentioned that some readers were masking their true identities. Why would people do that who are posting with fake names when they're viewing your anti-trafficking content?
Thank you for raising that concern. And that this, in my work, I've become to notice, again, I've only been in this Facebook advocacy group since April of 2020. And all these issues are arising by in a multiple wave. I'm getting trained, and I can't exactly go into details to how or what's being done, but these fake profiles are misleading. And the best thing I can say is that we can go anywhere to 45 minutes to 2 hours to more, just making sure that who they say they are, facts check with who they are on LinkedIn, who they are on different social media outlets like LinkedIn, WhatsApp, there's another one, Google Meets, there's all these different avenues. And in some cases, there are some members who do not add up to what their profile says. And I should clarify, I did say that there was more than 3,000 members, but since we've been fact checking and cross-referencing, we've been weeding out quite a few people. So the number is down to maybe about 2,900 members, something to that effect. There's a lot of people, for whichever justification that they may have, there's a lot of people that use different social media outlets and different advocacy groups, albeit human trafficking groups, to learn about how they can master their game of manipulation. Different faces. I'm not exactly a manipulative person myself, so I'm not too sure what their justification might be. It's only based upon my experience with fact checking these fake profiles that I can speak.
So fantastic to shine the light on behavior that isn't quite right, and that your choice to do that is to unmask what's behind the pretty face on the fake profile. I really appreciate that. And I know there is, just to move to something that is a little bit more about the consciousness and the awareness of the readership, as opposed to.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I just recognized three stories that I want to draw attention to. There's a name, I can't remember the first name, but I'm pretty sure he's a politician, Podesta. And previous to this line of work, I had no idea what the dark web was all about, what it was made up of. And I happened to go into there. And this was during, I want to say June or something. And I happened to go into there, and there was a horrific posting of a little girl. You can tell how real this was. She was screaming to the top of her lungs, and she was begging for her life. And all she kept saying was, stop, stop, stop. And the name Podesta kept on coming up in that story. Excuse me, I get a little trembly as I speak of it. For about a week or two, I just had to delete my membership. I just could not handle it. It was such a horrific experience to hear that child scream at the top of her lungs for mercy, for someone to come and save her. And all you could see in the dark web was black, but you can hear Podesta's voice saying disgusting things to this child, and she was screaming all the while. Excuse me, that was such a whole thing. Another thing, there was a horrible article, something in a European media outlet, showing all these foster parents, men specifically, older men, taking African children which they adopted into the ocean and playing with them, frolicking with them, when in fact they were doing sexually deviant things to them. They were completely horrific things. Again, this was on the dark web. And I'll never forget two of the faces that were on there, two of male faces that were on there. I just happened to review some of the members in HTNI. Lo and behold, one of those people were in our members. So I completely took action and I alerted proper authorities. And there's a lot of cases like that. It's very unfortunate, and it doesn't only happen in human trafficking use and information. They are all over the web. They are all over different distinct social media outlets. They are in our backyard. They could very well be our neighbors. We just don't know until we draw light to this issue. It's very unfortunate.
Thank you so much for drawing the light to us. I see the faces of our assembled group here, and I know that you have made an incredible impression. And in the interest of time, as we move forward, I think that piece has actually put a nice bookend on the importance of the social media in alerting all of us to the presence of people who are not with pure motive in any sense of the word, and that we should be aware, and if we can, take action.
Yes.
And support organizations like yours, and make sure that we are a force for good in the world. And I know many of the people in this assembled group are forces for good in the world and are educating themselves. Thank you for helping and educating us.
What people might not realize is that the administrator, myself, all the moderators, we're not paid for any of this. This is like a hobby. So when difficult issues like this, when viewing upon the dark web and going through profiles and discovering how sexually deviant some persons may be, when reading the stories and trying to discern and disseminate between graphic content and what's appropriate to post and what's not appropriate to post, that's a very taxing experience in our emotions and our human psyche. So you can't imagine, if it's just me speaking to you and bringing awareness to this issue, what about the others? And what about the millions of people that are victims and whom this continues to go on? I mean, I believe in the southern part of the US, there's a lot of, something to do with underground stuff, basements. How much of that do you think is involved in human trafficking? In Northern California, like Carpinteria, or as you drive by on highways in the US, there's a lot of migrant individuals on bus stops in Ohio, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas. How many victims can you possibly imagine go through this experience and they have no voice? That's what HTNI is here for, to serve as an advocacy group for their rights and to bring light to this information and educate against human trafficking. It has different names, different faces, and it's unfortunate, but Epstein, Sky Gates, politicians, movie stars, their list goes on and on about high prolific persons that have direct association with human trafficking in all its different forms. It has to be drawn to light. Mainstream media has to bring this up, but for whatever reason, they are not.
Well, we thank you for your incredible contribution to our awareness and expanding our knowledge today. And thank you so much. And please stay on, listen to the rest of the panelists. Everybody brings such knowledge. Thank you so much.
And we'll have
Xochi.
questions and answers at the end that people may want to ask you some questions, Xochi.
And we're going to go to our conversation with Lucia Ray, who is a member, a staff member of the Community Violence Solution Team, and her focus is on human trafficking. So Tom, do you want to start?
Yeah,
that?
I'd love to introduce Lucia Ray, who is an employee, staff member of the Community Violence Solutions. And if, Lucia, can you just introduce yourself to us and just tell us a little bit about your work?
Yes, of course. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Lucia Ray, and I currently manage our anti-human trafficking program at Community Violence Solutions. Our organization, as Tom has mentioned, provides services in both Contra Costa and Marin counties. And my team specifically, we serve survivors of all forms of human trafficking that have been affected in those two counties. We provide comprehensive case management services, which includes counseling, accompaniment, advocacy work, helping someone report from, or if they've never reported this crime before and they want to do that. So from reporting all the way to the aftercare of helping them through their healing. That is what our team does. And, also ensuring that their basic needs are met. A lot of the times when we encounter survivors of trafficking, they have absolutely nothing but what's on them at that moment. So we normally, when we're working with survivors, we're helping them, just meet their basic needs, provide them clothing and food and a place to stay, and making sure that they are safe from their trafficker. So that's a little bit about our work.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, we really appreciate what you do. I've been a member of the board of directors for a long time at CVS, and I am really impressed with how this organization serves people in many, many areas, but is always of service. I have a question for you, Lucia. You built connections with certain law enforcement agencies, and I wonder if you might explain about your advocacy and educational outreach to law enforcement.
Definitely. So prior to COVID, we were doing a lot of different things. One of our main areas of focus is providing outreach to the community, also training and education. But we were also conducting what's called roll call trainings to police officers. And in those situations, we may have maybe 5 minutes all the way up to 30 minutes to talk to law enforcement during their roll call hours, which is usually when law enforcement comes in for the day and they're getting their orders for the day from their sergeant or their lieutenant. And in that moment, we're introduced to let them know about our services and our work, what we do in the community, and how we can partner up if they ever encounter any survivor of trafficking or sexual violence. So, we do partner up often with law enforcement, and we also participate in sting operations with them when that happens. So we want to make sure that, they know we're available in case that service is needed, and then we're there to support survivors and how we do that work as well.
So what kind of training is available to prepare you to go do the roll call announcements?
Can you ask me that again?
The roll call training to prepare you to go in to the roll calls and share this information. What is it like?
The training itself, it's really brief, and because we have to be ready in case they have to leave. Usually if there's an emergency and they have to respond. So we're ready to say a lot in anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes if we're allowed more time. And it's just being ready, having also information with us, usually brochures that we can share and something they can hold on to in case they need to reach us later. A lot of law enforcement agencies, and more on the Contra Costa side, there is 26, I believe it's 26 law enforcement agencies. So just making sure we're reaching out and they know that we're there to support them.
What are the
we're
key
there to the public.
What are the key points that you're trying to get across as quickly as possible to them before they go out if they have to leave rather quickly?
That's a great question. So one of the main things is our hotline number. So we do have a hotline number that anybody can call that is a victim or knows somebody that is currently being victimized and they want to report it. So our hotline number, and I can give everyone our hotline number, is actually 1-800-670-7273. We also have a texting service. So somebody could text CVS to 20121. So that is the main thing, is talking about our services. You know, we provide comprehensive services to any survivor of human trafficking. 24 hours a day, you can get a response to any police department or hospital within 1 hour of calling us, and our crisis line number.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how do traffickers play on survivors to coerce them to continue being trafficked?
Yeah, that, traffickers appear as very good people in the beginning. Not in every situation. There's definitely situations where individuals are kidnapped or they're taken. I could tell you that those situations are much less occurring than the normal situation that we encounter or that we hear about. We have a lot of sex trafficking cases where our clients were lured to that trafficker, usually by romantic relationships. So either pretending to be their boyfriend or girlfriend and courting them, getting to know them, gathering a lot of information about the individual. And to that person, it doesn't feel unreal or like it's weird because they're getting to know them. They're trying to build a relationship. So they willingly share all of this information about themselves. Who do you go to when you're scared? What are your hopes and dreams? What are you looking forward to in life? And then that person starts building upon those things and building this relationship with them. I'm going to marry you. We're going to have 5 children. So everything that person is wanting, they're pretending to give to them. Maybe we have a lot of situations where they're provided a lot of things. So, they buy them stuff, they take them on trips, give them all of these really nice experiences that maybe in the past nobody has before. So this person is all in, right? They're all in for this, they're falling in love. And then one day this person runs out of money or they have an emergency. I have this emergency. Can you please help me out one time? I heard of this really quick way that we can make money, and if you do it one time, it'll get us out of this bind. And once that trafficker has gotten this person to do that, and this person who never thought they would ever do anything like that, but is now so in love, will do that because they love this person. And after they get them to do that one time for them, so have sex with somebody for money, usually they'll keep asking, oh, did you see how quickly we make that money? Your dream of becoming a movie star, your dream of modeling, we could achieve that much faster if you kept doing this. So they're sold this facade of a relationship. That's one way that we've seen it. And that actually is, like I said, it's a much higher occurrence than any other form that we may encounter on the news. Usually cases that are highlighted on the news are cases that are like really severe. We also support survivors of labor trafficking, and that is a very hidden crime. That's something that not a lot of people are able to recognize. And that's someone that could be, making very, very little money, working and living in the same location. Maybe they were promised to do one type of work, and then once they arrived, they're completely doing something different. So there's a lot of individuals that go without receiving any support or help because they don't even know it's there. And oftentimes when we encounter labor trafficking, clients and they start working with us, they told us they've actually been trafficked for many, many years. I'm talking about like 10 plus, and never knew that that was something that was bad. They thought they were just working. So that's another area. And then we also provide services to our minors. And that is something that has been rising during the pandemic. We've had an increase in clients that are right now, our age group is about 12 years old, from 12 and up. That is our current rise in clients, unfortunately. There's a lot of crimes happening in the internet, and a lot of youth are being lured through the internet by traffickers. And also by other youth, just letting them know kind of the positive, I would say, quote unquote, positive sides of this, how quickly they could make money, how much money they could make, but not really talking about all the dangers that go along with this. There's also been a rise in other crimes, like people recording and selling videos and pictures of themselves. So that is considered exploitation, especially if it's resold many times. On top of it is a federal crime, and it's child porn. There's also, it could be exploitive. There's a lot of new sites that have gone up. You know, some sites are taken down, but others come up. So it's definitely helped increase all of that crime. And it's really important for parents to be aware of that.
So Lucia, what you're describing, now this isn't happening in LA and New York, this is happening in Contra Costa and Marin counties.
Yes.
Wow. Are there some red flags that we as parents or guardians could be made aware of, that maybe we need to look a little bit more closely, that our child may be a target of these deviants?
Yeah. If you're, you know, I think just being, a parent right now through the pandemic, just making sure you're aware of what your child is doing online, checking if they're hiding their laptop to talk, or they're, you know, all of our kids right now, most of them are going to school that way. If they're hiding themselves in the bathroom or their bedroom to have a conversation, they're talking all through the night with someone, they're trying to hide that relationship from you, that would be a really big red flag for me. As well as if they're leaving the home overnight or for periods of time, all of that, new friendships that don't feel right. You know, we all have like gut instincts, and if it's something doesn't feel right, it's better to be wrong and say something and just check it out, you know, than for something bad to happen. And you know, our agency does conduct trainings for the community. You know, we can always put a presentation together on red flags and what to look for parents if that is a need. We're definitely all about prevention and education.
It's really important to reach out to communities of parents and churches and other places. And I know that Community Violence Solutions does have such a huge volume of people that they deal with, that sometimes taking the deep dive, like what we're trying to do today, isn't always what can be done. As far as staff and resources go, you get spread pretty thin. But I do want to ask about traffickers, and I want to ask about the psychological aspect of coercion and how people are pushed into staying in the game.
Yeah, you know, for our clients, their trafficking experiences takes a huge toll on their life and just kind of recovering from that experience. You know, for some of our clients, they may experience drug addiction, or they may experience, you know, having to have long-term therapy and counseling services to kind of start healing, right? There's also clients that suffer like really bad health conditions from it, can pick up something, a disease that's long-term, as well as just, I think that long recovery of feeling safe, that overwhelming feeling of not feeling safe at their home and getting them to feel safe is really one of the biggest struggles for us. I think, you know, trafficking in general it's a horrible crime. I've worked in many different settings with different backgrounds, and I think our trafficking survivors experience so many different things in one crime. We may have survivors that experience homelessness, interpersonal violence. They may be survivors of sexual abuse. And so all of these crimes that they've experienced are intertwined as part of their trafficking. And it only kind of elevates their trauma. And so it can be really hard on clients, and their recovery may be long because of it.
Thank you for sharing. These long-term consequences are life-changing, as you have pointed out, and it is super important to have the sensitivities that I know CBS's staff is well trained in dealing with these psychodynamics. And thank you for bringing them to light for us to think about.
And I'm curious, since I've gotten involved with CVS, I've heard the term grooming by the predators. What exactly does that term mean, and what's going on there with this grooming process?
That's a very good question. So a lot of our clients experience grooming, and what grooming is basically is kind of where the trafficker is incorporating themselves little by little into somebody's life, either by how I described earlier, giving somebody gifts, getting to know them, maybe even becoming involved with their family, you know, getting to know their family, little by little, incorporating themselves into that person's life. And it could be in many different ways. It could be by providing someone money. Oh, here's money to take care of this person. It could be by just saying really good things to that person that may be experiencing really a hard day, right? Or just grooming. There's different types of grooming tactics that are used by traffickers. There's grooming online that we've seen, and there's also grooming in person, right? So just it looks a little bit different depending on the situation. We've also seen it with our sexual assault survivors, especially with our minor children, where the individuals have groomed them in order to kind of become a part of that their family, and to get closer to that child.
Okay. Now that sounds like somebody who's doing a good deed for you or your family. So how do you draw the line when if someone has an evil purpose behind it? How do you know?
You know, most parents, you know, when we're supporting them and we're helping them, if it's a minor child that's involved and that grooming has happened, they felt it. At one point, they vibed out that something was wrong. It felt like too much. There are good people in this world. I don't want to say that everyone is out there with bad intentions, but if it feels like too much, go with your gut instinct. You know, if that person wants to be alone with your child or wants to take them somewhere, that is not okay. You know, I think just listening to your instincts and being really aware of that, and just if something feels like it's not real, it's probably not. And, you know, just kind of being really aware of that.
The too good to be true type of situation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful place to pause, because we are now at almost the noon hour. And I know that there are a lot of questions that you've been listening so patiently and absorbing a lot of information that might be very difficult to hear. And
So,
Lucia,
Joann, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording for the formal presentation, and we'll be uploading this on YouTube for everybody to look at it later.